Tonight we are here to hear from our three candidates for mayor. Cindy Burkett doesn't really need an introduction. I'm sure everybody knows her. Former state rep, she worked for a state senator, state rep, candidate, does all kinds of things, and now works as a financial advisor. So happy to have her here tonight. And so without any further ado, I will turn it over to Cindy.
If you guys don't mind, I'm going to try to get this where I don't have to hold the mic so I can take notes. Okay, can everybody hear me? Okay, and if I knock it over and kill your ears, I apologize ahead of time. Okay, still? Okay, we're going to start, and I'm going to start from left to right, and then with each question, we'll have the next person in line be the first person to answer. So first, we're going to start with just a 3-minute, introduce yourself, tell us about yourself, and we'll start with Blake.
All right, thank you for coming out tonight, and thank you to the Chamber for hosting this forum. So good evening, my name is Blake Margolis, and I'm a 22-year resident, lifelong resident of Rowlett. I want to tell you a little bit about my background and how I came to this point today. I was raised in Rowlett and first became interested in local government when I was around the age of 6. It was at this age when I noticed signs around town that said there was going to be a town hall meeting, and so I decided I want to go to this town hall meeting, 6, right, get in my suit, and I wanted to ask the council why the field next to my neighborhood had a sign that said Future Park, and it was there for years, and it never happened. So apparently I didn't know what the word recession meant. And but I left that meeting knowing that I wanted to be more involved in local government eventually. So fast forward to 14, and I started listening to the police and fire scanner. I wanted to just be informed, with a siren going down the road. I wanted to know what was going on. I guess I was nosy. And so I started posting some of the major emergency incidents on Facebook, and that page reached over 40,000 followers, helped inform the people in Rowlett what was going on. At 15, I was asked by the owner of Cathy Towing to come work for him as a dispatcher and admin assistant. Was there for 4 years. And at 15, I was approached by the Parks Board director and he asked me if I wanted to join as a junior alternate member. So I served on the Rowlett Parks Board for several terms, so for several years, until an opening came up on the Rowlett City Council. And I've been serving as your elected representative ever since. Having the opportunity to serve you on the City Council has allowed me to accomplish policy and service initiatives that benefit Rowlett and its future. So why am I here today? I am here because I have the leadership skills and the right experience that matters to move Rowlett forward to being more proactive and transparent. It's time for bold new leadership, and I look forward to being able to bring about the positive changes the city needs and deserves. Thank you.
Thank you, Blake. And I forgot to mention, Laura, would you raise your hand down here? Laura Keesing is our timekeeper. And so when it starts ringing, you didn't go over your time, thank you, but when it starts buzzing, wrap it up real quick, okay? Thank you. Joel, you're next.
I would be next. My name is Joel Medina. I'm originally from Fort Worth, Texas, born and raised until I was about 6.5 years old, very close to the Fort Worth stockyards. Moving away from Fort Worth, I moved to Grand Prairie, then Pantego, and then Garland. So I lived in Garland for a long time. And then my family, my 4th child, decided to move to Rowlett. I do remember as a young child driving down the streets of Rowlett thinking how beautiful the city was, how nice and respectful, and I'd come to Rowlett, we'd go to grocery stores, it seemed like everybody was extremely friendly. The biggest memory I have is my father and I fished a lot on Rowlett Creek, and we lived in Garland, so we'd travel from Garland to Rowlett. Driving through Rowlett, there's a housing development called Springfield Estates. And we would pass by the front door or the front gate or the walls, and I'd look in and I would see these beautiful houses, and I looked over at my dad and I was like, Dad, wouldn't it be nice to live in that neighborhood? It would be amazing. Look at how beautiful those houses are. We lived in a nice, 3-bedroom home at the time in Garland. So, fast forward, we moved to Rowlett 8 years ago. My son was about 3 months away from being born, my final son, three boys, 1 girl. Oldest daughter is 23, second son's 20, and I have a 12-year-old and a 7-year-old son. So fast forward, we moved to Rowlett because I wanted to get out of Garland. Wasn't happy with the environment, so we moved to Rowlett because I know it's peaceful. I've seen it, I've heard a lot about it. I love the small community feel, and we decided to move. Little did I know that that one place that I dreamed about moving into, Springfield Estates, is the actual house I would be moving into to rent. I moved into the house, put all my furniture down, and we just lived. And the owner of the house got to know me really well. He came to work for me with my company for a little bit of time and actually gave us the option to buy the house from him, and we did. So that's why I moved into that home to rent, wound up buying it. The gentleman worked for me for about 6 months and then moved on. Moving forward a little bit, we have been very active since the doors opened at the Chamber of Commerce, or the City Council meetings, where I've watched Blake and I wanted to learn. I wanted to know a lot of things that were going on, how to speak, citizens input. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I want to learn and I'm eager to learn. So I wanted to educate myself more, get involved, go make decisions, help some of the city folk make their decisions, lakefront homeowners. There's been a lot of really cool things happen, and it's more of passion that I'm motivated to put myself in the middle of all this and accept everything that comes with it, including some of the negative stuff. So I'm here, I'm not going anywhere, and whatever happens, I wish these two gentlemen the best of absolute luck, and I know that Rowlett is forefront in their mind, so thank you.
Thank you, Joel. Yeah, y'all applaud. Y'all, it's hard to put yourself up here and out here. I like being on this side of it. Yeah, really. Okay, Chris, go ahead.
It's really hard up here because it's very bright. So I'm Chris Gazar. I kind of feel like the old guy now for the folks up here. I am a very long-time resident, moved here in 1991 with my wife and daughter from Arizona as we relocated here with my company. Since then, of course, has been all about the give back, all about helping Rowlett residents. I have been very successful in my business career, from owning a business for nearly 20 years and I got to retire from, to what I'm probably most known for is Life Message. And 24 years ago, actually next week will be the anniversary for that. We formed Life Message for the purpose of giving back. And for 24 years, it has been all about the needs of our community. In 2012, we relocated Rowlett, to Rowlett, the Life Message facility, and began doing a brick and mortar, which has probably been the fastest growing for us. We have now managed to have 9 project increases in that 10 years. Currently, we have 2 facilities, which is, of course, the Life Message Food Pantry, as well as my Veterans Resource and Outreach Center. We serve about 100,000 people a year out of the facility in Rowlett. And of course, for us, it's much broader than that when you include the Veterans Resource. We're about finding housing and transportation, jobs, claims being written, mental health, wellness aspects, and more importantly, probably the big project program we have, which of course is for veterans, and that's redoing housing. For me and my wife, it has been about really trying to adjust to what is a change of culture for us, because I have not been in one solid city for this many years in a row. But I know for us, it has been long-ranging, and we love this city. I'm probably the one that can say that I have eat, sleep, and breathe Rowlett every single day. I am, of course, with one granddaughter about to graduate high school, which gives me a really big age, but 4 grandchildren, so we are committed here forever. I bought our house 25 years ago, so we're the ones you'll always see here from now on. So we would appreciate your vote. I do, of course, encourage my guys here to do well, so thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Okay. We received a lot of questions. The chamber received a lot of questions. I've kind of taken the majority of them and put them in categories. So I thought first we'd hit on taxes or anything to do with finance. So I hope you guys are ready for these. And Joel, you're going to be next, because I'm just going to start with you, and the next time I'll start with Chris, okay? Okay, let's look at this one. What tax-cutting measures, if any, do you propose for the coming fiscal year?
A lot of our taxes revolve around our annual budget. I know we get 2 briefings for our budget throughout the year. I would have to look at the budget myself. Blake is in tune right now with that. He knows, he's seen them. I mean, he's seen the most recent budget. Once we get that in front of us from a business aspect, I will look at any changes that I can make to benefit our citizens.
Okay, thank you. Okay, same question for you, Chris. What tax-cutting measures, if any, do you propose for the coming fiscal year?
Well, I would actually not suggest any tax cuts at this point. How little do we know at this point what is going on, especially for me and Joel? But the reality of it is, until we get our hands around what the actual expectations are from the tax rates that come in, we won't know. But at this point, I would not recommend any tax cuts for this fiscal year coming in for Rowlett.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Okay, Blake.
Yes, so I would be in favor of a property tax rate cut. There are several things that we have to evaluate. When we get the appraisal values in from Dallas County, we have to look at what percentage of growth. Are we going to grow in the general fund, 10%? If so, we have to cut all the way down to 3.5% due to state law. So even if we don't want to cut the property tax rate, which we should, new state law would require us to anyway. So there's several aspects to look at. You have to look at your INS and M&O, and you have to look at your debt service. What kind of bond package are you going to want to put forth in the next bond proposal? Does that give you enough capacity with the current tax rate to do such? So there are so many different aspects to look at when you're considering a property tax rate decrease. But typically, when your appraisal values are skyrocketing the way that they are,
I don't know, go ahead.
is the mic on? Okay.
You got Joel moving, though.
Typically, when you're looking at the property tax rate cuts, you look at your appraisal values, and if they are increasing the way that they have been, I would say that we would need to try our best to reduce the property tax rate given the rate of increase that we're seeing in the appraisal values. Thank you.
That's required by the state. Thank you. Okay, and I'm glad you mentioned bonds, so let's see. Chris, I think you're next first. Do you view debt through bonds as absolutely necessary or often required, sometimes required, or completely unnecessary? So your choice on bonds, absolutely necessary, often required, sometimes required, or completely unnecessary?
Well, based on what I know to what our bonds are being used for and at the rate that we get them, I almost probably consider that a natural give and take for us ongoing in order to get the infrastructure built that we want. Now, I think the way you can solve not getting more bond money is to, of course, have more tax money, which no one wants to have more tax money. So I tell, as long as we continue to come out with either tax cut measures, which reduces the amount of money we have available, or have some major influx in commercial, which is, of course, in commerce, to create more taxes, we're going to have to find a way of funding more infrastructure pieces, and I think that bonds are the answer.
Oh, I'm sorry, am I going the wrong way? I'm trying to keep.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
So the question regarding bonds, I think bonds are absolutely necessary for any local government. We don't have 40 million cash sitting in the bank. And the only way for us to afford these major projects like Miller Road or Cheeser Road is to bond it out. That's our only way to afford it. So it's also important that we look at our 20% allocation to reserve funding. The higher reserve funding you have, the better off you are with the rate, which affects your interest. So there's different aspects to look at when you're considering a bond election. And you also have to consider that, let's say that in the future we wanted to propose a $100 million bond. Well, we don't have the capacity to afford that without a property tax rate increase. So what council's been doing for the last 3 bonds is staying below that capacity cap so that we don't have to increase the property tax rates, and we should continue to do that.
My answer is a lot shorter. Yes, I think bonds are necessary, and I think it's 100% up to the citizens' votes to decide what direction the city needs to go and move forward to.
Okay. Okay, and then Blake, you're first on this one, and as long as we're talking about bonds, so are you in favor of continuing to bundle bond items which might otherwise be seen as unrelated? For example, the public safety packages that includes funds to research a new municipal complex with other things.
So, did y'all hear that? I'm sorry, because
Okay, let me read it back. I'm sorry. I said as long as we're talking about bonds, are you in favor of continuing to bundle bond items which might otherwise be seen as unrelated? For example, the public safety package that included funds to research a new municipal complex. So do you want a one bond issue, or do you like a bundle of several?
So I'll admit, when we're in the moment of planning these bond elections, the thought process, at least for me, wasn't really about how to package them together. Typically, so like we will have a parks bond, a public works bond, so infrastructure, and then public safety. And at that time, we thought that the best place for the municipal center or the facilities study would be in public safety. In retrospect, I think we should have separated it. And if we come back to the voters in potentially November for a facilities bond, I don't know what that looks like yet, but if we do, then I would hope that the council would agree to separate those items by facility so that the voters aren't having to vote for an entire municipal complex. They can vote for an animal shelter or a police station and not just the whole package.
Joel?
Personally, I think everything needs to be individualized. It needs to be itemized by subject. If they want to include things that have to do with the same subject, that's fine. But from what I've seen, again, some of the lakefront homeowners, when they won during the elections of the last midterm elections, it was kind of disappointing to some of the things that were on or grouped together. And I think that the citizens would have a better direction if we could vote on one thing at a time, and it wouldn't eliminate some of the things that the city does need because they're grouped.
Okay, thank you. Chris?
Well, my knowledge base on bonds is a little limited, but it does make sense that you would probably individualize them a little bit more. Though, again, I don't have a lot of knowledge base as to how they've ever put things together with that package. So, though it makes sense, I guess when the time comes, I get there, then I'll be able to have a better answer for you.
Okay, appreciate that. Okay, and then this is our last one as far as financial, but as long as we're talking about bonds and how to finance roads, et cetera, what are your thoughts on a city sales tax? Joel, you would be first.
This is something that I'm not in tune with, kind of like Chris here. That I'll be the first to tell you, there's a lot of things that I need more information on. I do not want to speak on things that I'm not familiar with. So this is one of the topics, but it doesn't take much for somebody who's been running a business to sit down with the people who are in charge of our taxes, our city attorneys there. We have all these wonderful people in place to help us and guide us to make better decisions. So I'll wait for them and respect where it's at and figure out once we get to that point.
Sounds good. Chris?
I guess the question I would have for you, is that like a separate independent sales tax above? Because we already have a sales tax already that we have.
There's already a sales tax that you get a portion of. So, and these are questions we got directly as they were, these are questions that we received directly as they were sent. So for clarification, we'll say additional sales tax for the city.
So the city would increase the sales tax?
Well,
Or would they
actually it just
increase their
says city
portion?
sales tax. So I do realize that we have part of the sales tax does go to the city. But the question literally was, what are your thoughts on a city sales tax? Well, that's what it says. I'm sorry. That's correct. So since you already have a portion of the sales tax going to the city, I guess additional would be the clarification. Can y'all hear me okay?
Might want to switch that.
All right, I'm going to pull this out of here. Oh, sorry. Okay. So again, the questions are, what are your thoughts on a city sales tax? We're between the discussion, we've decided that's going to be an additional city sales tax since part of the sales tax already goes to the city.
Well, again, that's kind of a big voter part. I I don't know that I would want to increase the city sales tax. We are already, as a business owners, we're already taxed a lot as it is. So to increase the city sales tax, again, I don't know that I'd be in favor of that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So the fact is, the city doesn't have control over increasing the city sales tax. That is a state legislature issue. So right now, the city sales tax rate is 8.25%, and the city gets 2% of that. 1% goes to DART. Ever since we became a DART member city in 1983, 1% of that goes to DART. So I think the better question is, do we want to approach DART with other cities that are members of DART and reconsider how much money they receive annually? Right now, DART is receiving the same amount of sales tax Rowlett receives, which is around $7 million. So does DART need that much money from just one entity, just Rowlett? Imagine how much they're getting from Dallas. So I think the better question is, do we want some of our sales tax to stay in Rowlett and invest those dollars in Rowlett and maybe allocate those dollars, if we're able to successfully get some of that back to Rowlett, to infrastructure, just infrastructure? And I would be in support of that.
All great points. I'm going to clarify one thing, though. Let me.
Oh, you would know because you were in the state legislature.
Yeah. Would you approach the state legislature about allowing you to increase your sales tax?
No.
Because
Well,
everything you said was accurate.
If they're willing to
Absolutely.
give us more out of the 8.25%, I'll take it.
Yeah. But
I'll take
you
it.
don't-
Yeah,
Of course you would.
yeah.
And I know everybody here would like you to. But you don't see asking them to increase it. Now, I'm not trying to pick on you. These guys didn't have the background you did, so that's a good point that you brought out.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's go to transportation or roads, which is what most people think of when they think about their city council members or their mayor. So how would you prioritize, let's see, who's first? Chris, you're first on this one. How would you prioritize the repair of specific streets, alleys, and sidewalks from here out going forward?
Well, I know there's an answer for that. That's based on depthness of the roads of some nature. I don't know how they really do that, to be honest with you. I guess whatever the roads are the worst is where you start with. I know there's some formula involved with that that's been calculated by our, I guess it's the Gary's bunch, I guess, who's done that. Again, I don't have a lot of knowledge how they pick those, other than, of course, the...
Well, the question is, how would you do it?
That's not a very good question for me. Oh, my gosh. If I drive down a road and it's messed up, let's make that a road a priority. That's how I would look at it. You know, if it's, sometimes they work on roads, I don't understand why they work on them. Again, I know there's some formula behind all that, but my priority would be whatever road I drive over and it's in a mess, it'd be like, let's fix that road.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
All right, Blake?
So we have a method to determining the worst roads. It's called the Pavement Condition Index. And we rate every road in this city on a score from 0 to 100, 100 being best. And we recently just purchased a new technology to go mount on the front of a truck that actually digitally scans the road to receive real data. So are there bumps in the road? How deep is that bump? That will actually be automated, and it will go into our system, so we're able to actually scan roads quicker. Instead of, it takes about 4 years to get a full PCI rating in the city, this will take it just to 1 year. So we'll have real-time data to be able to see the rate of deterioration of roads, because that's important. The road may be in moderate shape, but the rate of deterioration may be worse. So would you rather get that road done before this worse road over here if this one is deteriorating quicker? So there's different ways to consider how to allocate funding to infrastructure. There's different priorities in roads. So you definitely want to get a major thoroughfare done in each bond election. So for example, in the 2018 bond election, we allocated dollars to reconstruct Miller Road between the railroad tracks and Dalrock, and Chisa Road between Miller Road and Dalrock. So, and that's multi-millions of dollars. So you want to get big projects done and alleys and neighborhood streets done as well.
Okay, thank you.
Along with Blake, you know, during the orientation, we were told that this system that he's referring to is going to map out every road in Rowlett and every alley in Rowlett. So it's going to give us a firsthand view of the worst conditions of the roads. They also spoke about concrete, asphalt, how asphalt deteriorates due to weather conditions, and I would stay away from asphalt as much as possible and have everything done the right way. One thing I will say is I wish this was done a long time ago, before Sapphire Bay and a lot of these multifamily units came into town. I think that should have been one of the top priorities before even Sapphire Bay, or during the same time Sapphire Bay was even thought of or agreed to. That should have been something that we probably up the time frame on a little more.
The pavement condition index, I'm sorry, I think we've been doing that for many, many, many years before Sapphire Bay.
Okay, well, and you talked about, Blake, you're going to be first this time and mark it, so I'll make sure to keep it straight. You talked about Miller Road. So based on 3 categories in support of building new bridge over Miller Road east of Bush Turnpike, where would you prioritize energy for getting this completed? Would you call it high? Would you be a high advocate? Would you be a moderate advocate or a low advocate? So again, as far as your thoughts on the 3 categories that I just mentioned
Miller
in
Road
support
Bridge?
of building a new bridge over Miller Road east of Bush Turnpike, would you be a high advocate for that, a moderate advocate, or a low advocate? That makes sense?
Yeah, an extremely high advocate. The project is going to take an effort from many different government agencies. It's about, last I heard, and with inflation, who knows, but last I heard it was around $50 million for a new bridge. And it's in the city of Dallas, so it has to be a partnership between them, Dallas County, North Central Texas Council of Governments, potentially TxDOT, and Dallas Water Utilities, and probably the Army Corps of Engineers because it's over the lake. So it's not going to be an easy project, but the city hasn't done enough at all to start a conversation. And I've reached out personally to the Council of Governments and asked them to please put it on their mobility plan so that we can at least be able to identify funds, federal, state, to allocate to this project. So we need to up the ante, we need to get more serious and bring in regional partners to have a formal conversation and start somewhere. And it's kind of sad because even if we start the conversation now, I mean, it could be 10 years, 15 years before something actually happens. That's the way it works, but, and government's slow, but we need to start somewhere.
Is there a code red on there? Is there a
Sorry?
code red on the importance of these roads? So I think,
I think
again,
that'd be high advocate, is that what you're saying?
Extremely. So my main concern is citizens' comfort, okay? I've traveled up and down that road many times. Dave is here. I would like to see some things changed instead of it affecting his shop so much. I'm 100% for it. I've seen people walk down the side of the road, and it's not a good walking pathway. I think that's very uncomfortable for some of our citizens who want to enjoy our lake. I think the bridge is most definitely needed. There's been a large growth out in that area with houses. I know there's some more stuff coming up in the empty spaces right at Chisa and Miller. I think that we need a very good plan for a citizen commute, and it needs to be also included sidewalks and pathways for people to enjoy fishing. I know that over there at that park, it's not a handicap. What is it? Where's Stephanie at? It's not handicap ready, and there's some things that need to be taken care of. There's a lot of little details that were missed, and I think, unfortunately, the citizens are paying for it. And I mean, anything to make our citizens commute better or enjoyment of the lake better, I'm all for it, 100%.
Well, this is definitely one that would have to go with what Blake said. There are a lot of moving parts to make that bridge get done. It has been in discussions for many, many years. For us, I think that have been here a long time would like to make it a high priority. But the problem really gets into still, there's a lot of moving components, a lot of moving parts between the city of Dallas and Rowlett. And as Blake indicated, obviously he has some knowledge base here, but from the resident standpoint, to realize that that's something that even if it got voted on and approved by all entities would still be years away. So I think we'll all agree it is a very high priority. But it's low on the get the job done thing. So I think we should all make an effort to get in front of them quicker.
Yeah, having served on Transportation Committee, roads are slow. You have to plan way ahead. That is correct. Okay, let's look at, when you get if you were to get a rezoning request, and Joel, you'll be first on this one. Let me mark you. If you were to get a rezoning request and it comes before you, what specific considerations do you give to ensure that the city upholds its standards as it relates to the form-based code and the comprehensive plan that the city has had out there?
This is a good question. I was thinking about this on the way here, as a matter of fact. And some of the plans for the city, in my eyes, from a citizen standpoint, don't seem citizen-friendly. I know a lot of people who've moved to Rowlett because it's a nice, quiet town. And I know that there's people that are moving out of Rowlett because it's starting to be too busy. I think that I would ask for something different than what Rowlett sees and what Rowlett has been pushing for this North Shore development. I'm not sure that people want to see that in Rowlett, and I would ask for that to be zoned differently for different things, like maybe more of community homes, single-family homes, because I really feel we're not McKinney, we're not Rockwall, and as much as the city wants to grow and we want finances and taxes, and corporate taxes, I'm not sure that the citizens actually want that. I feel that I'm hearing more of we're moving out of this town because it's too busy now. I would like to invite people to Rowlett if they want to move away from the McKinneys and the Allens and the Friscos. I like the hometown feel. That's why I moved here, and I would like to see that move in a different direction.
Chris?
Well, talking about zoning, so I have a little bit of opinion about this. Obviously, I sit on the Board of Adjustments, so I've had several cases that have come before us over the years that has discussed zoning and form-based codes, and sometimes, you know, our task on the Board of Adjustments is to evaluate each case individually. I really would like to have seen that when they made the form-based code up, and along with all that coding aspect out there, was that they did it a little bit more liberal to allow for some interpretation. I felt bad on a couple cases that came before us that were very, very strict in how a homeowner should build a new home, but unfortunately would completely change the aesthetics to what was out there. I, for one, believe that each one of these cases with the form-based code aspect should be, though it's good in its intentions, but from the Board of Adjustment standpoint, because we hear so many of these that have been looking for the exception to the rule, I believe that, again, that there should be an allowance made for each and every case that's different to come in, because, again, I think they've just stereotyped every single one of them to fall under one code. So it's hard for that point.
Okay. Blake?
So the form-based code is in much need of a revision, and that is actually starting to begin with the stakeholder engagement group that the City Council just created. Their job is to amend the form-based code and the Rowlett Development Code. For some reason, we have two different building codes. Rowlett Development Code, form-based code. Not efficient. And so we're going to be revamping that and creating one consolidated code to make it easier for homeowners and developers to better understand what the requirements are, so that they're not having to come in the back end and request amendments and major warrants and things like that. With regards to what I would consider in a zoning case, obviously the comprehensive plan has to be one of those points that we need to look at and ensure that what was realized, that the citizens put together, the comp plan, what was realized or visioned in that plan is something that we would like to see built on that land. Unfortunately, there have been decisions in the past where council has completely put something different that absolutely had nothing to do with the zoning. There's also a need for overlay zones, and overlay zones are somewhat of like an enforcement measure to the comp plan. So a comp plan is really just a vision, and we're required to consider that during zoning cases. But let's say that a property is realized in the comp plan as being commercial, but the zoning is residential. Well, the developer can come in and put residential and not ask for permission, even though the comp plan says that it's commercial. So you do an overlay zone to match what is realized in the comp plan to the zoning. And so there's various ways to work with that, and then you also have, again, the amendment of the Route Development Code, form-based code, that has to be done, and we are doing that.
Okay. And Chris, you're going to be next on this one, but to kind of tie in what Blake was just talking about, if you've got one kind of zoning there, but one of your plans specifies a different zoning, you have an individual that buys that land with the thought that they're going to use it for what it's zoned for. I think that creates an issue, but that kind of goes to my next question. Do you support more or less government regulations, which would be y'all as the city, regarding zoning, land use regulations, and fees and fines?
Well, I think you have to have the city that regulates those type of zoning issues. I think that there needs to be, I don't know that I would agree with one kind of interpretation for that. It's too rough in my mind. I think that they have to me, be more diverse in the number of zoning opportunities they have. From all my BOA measures I've seen, unfortunately has conflicted so many times with what any one particular zoning would be. So I think if you're talking about bringing in a particular building to an area that's zoned for a certain way, there just has to be some level of flex in how, I don't know how they would term that inside the zoning aspects, but for me, as I watch these homeowners and business owners struggle with trying to put something specific in there, they're always asking for changes. So I think that it has to be something that's a little bit more flexible and interpretive on each case-by-case situation. So government, yes, but flexible, yes.
Again, our codes need to be more efficient and effective, and they're not right now. And so that's one of the things we're working on changing with the stakeholder engagement group. Can you read the question one more time? I want to make sure I don't miss something.
Sure. Do you support more or less government regulations regarding zoning, land use regulations, fees and fines, and tying in what you just said about there being two different, on some places, two different implications?
Right. I'm not sure that I'm for or against more government regulation. I'd say I'm more for more efficient regulation, and that's kind of what I just said a minute ago. More efficient.
Thank you. Joel?
I would like the government to stay as far away from me as possible, or my city. We've seen the government recently do some things that don't allow us our freedoms that we have constitutionally. So I'm always going to be citizen-friendly, Constitution, Bill of Rights. I'm not for government overreach. I think that the city knows what's best for the city. We're not going to get somebody from anybody on Capitol Hill to come to Rowlett and look around and drive around and be like, hey, Blake, council member, let's go down the street here and see what's going on. It doesn't happen that way. So the people who know more about our city should be running our city.
Totally agree. Okay, we had several questions on diversity, and I've just picked a few of them because we got a lot of questions. I think first question I'd like to ask, and Blake, you were first this time. Mark that down. What areas do you think that the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission needs to focus on to make a difference in promoting equity and inclusion in our diverse city? What will you do to promote it?
So I think one of the opportunities that they can focus more on is our disabled population. Joel referred to it a minute ago, the handicap issue at Paddle Point Park. And if they can work with some of our disabled community members and look at opportunities that are out there so that the city is more inclusive with opportunities for them just as much as anybody else, I think that's one of the opportunities that I'd like to see the RDEIC look into.
Joe?
This is a good one for me. I think that there's certain focuses with the diversity group, and I would like to see it more spread out. Like Blake, I think that there's a lot of different entities that need more attention than some, and I would like to see that spread out. So getting involved, I want to always respect anything that is already in place. And as a business owner, I've always taught my guys, and when we got a new guy that comes in, or if I start a new job, I don't walk into some place and start demanding things that I'm going to change or that I think are appropriate. I'm going to learn the system first. I'm going to learn what's there. I'm going to respect everybody that's been in place working on it for some odd years, and I'm going to get all of their information. And then I'm going to go back and think about what I can do to better improve the situation or the direction of or the attention of, but I will always respect what they have, and I'll learn what it is that they are providing, and then I'll move forward from there.
Okay, quick clarification. You said something about it spreading out. I'm not sure I followed
Right,
that.
so we have different aspects. We have different groups, different entities between the veterans, handicapped, LGBTQ. I mean, there's a lot of different entities that blacks, Hispanics. I would like to see programs that are across the board getting the same attention.
Okay, thank you, sir. Chris?
Well, another topic I don't have a lot of knowledge base on. But obviously, for the folks that we cater to at Life Message, inclusion is a lot of those pieces that I would think if they're, Blake used to going on the handicapped aspects, those are important for us. But again, I don't really have a lot of interaction on that particular board, knowledge base on it to say what I would do more of or less of. Like Joel, I would probably have to agree that probably dive more into it to figure out exactly what is totally encompassed inside that committee and that board and what all they do cover. Because again, I'm not real versed in that area either, so sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine. And this is going to be a kind of a follow-up to that question. Joel, you're the first one on this one. So how will you incorporate feedback from advisory boards and commissions, not just the Diversity Equity Advisory Board, but all of them, but in particular, that's what this question's about, from the commissions, city staff, and the public into your decision-making process as a council member, or in your case, mayor on the council?
I know our last mayor was big on the 3-minute rule. I think we all need to, regardless how long it takes, I think the citizens deserve more than that. I'd like to just make it the 5-minute rule. I'd like to get everybody together, whether it be different entities at different times, and ask what their personal opinions are as an individual, as well as a group or entity or a part of the municipality of Rowlett. I want to make sure that we hear everything from each person who helps Rowlett, citizens that are watching the progress or the reversal of Rowlett, and instead of moving forward, they see issues. My whole thing with all of this is citizens' input. If you're a citizen of Rowlett and you're helping Rowlett, you stepped up to do something as a volunteer and you're helpful, everything that you say is going to matter to me. I want to know how the citizens feel, and then we'll get together with the organizations to find out how they feel. But if an organization steps up to talk and we get with a group, I want to know individuals who are part of that organization, how they feel too. So I think taking a deep dive into what people really feel is what we're missing. I think there's a lot of decisions that are not being made based on what the citizens want. It's being made on what direction does the council think that the city needs to go to. So it has to be individual input when it comes down to it for me.
Okay, Chris?
If you don't mind, ask that first
Reading
part
the
of the
question
question
again,
again.
yeah. Okay, how will you incorporate feedback from advisory boards and commissions, whether it be the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Commission or any other commission, the city staff, and the public into your decision-making process as a council member?
How would we equate that comes back from the advisory boards?
Advisory boards, city staff, and the public.
Well, I mean, all citizens should have that right. I know from the boards and commissions that I sit on, we send up recommendations for council to try to equate an answer to. But as far as some of the citizens and their ability to provide their own input, I would agree. I think there has to be limited timelines, but all voices should be heard. I know the ones that come from the boards that I sit on, that I would only expect and hope that council takes the time to listen, whatever timeline. I don't know that I would agree with, 5 or 10 or 15 minutes to listen to each one, but I think their voice is important. Again, so the ones that come to us on our boards, they should be heard on every level, because again, it's important. So.
Okay, Blake?
So with regards to board and commissions, It's typically the decisions made in Board of Commission level is included in the council packet, and it gives a reason why that the board voted that way. But as a council member and mayor, it's your individual responsibility to go and view the meetings online. So that's what I do. Any zoning case, any matter that's coming to me, if it was discussed in a board or like P&Z or BOA, I will go and watch the video and make sure that I didn't miss anything. And that's going to be the individual council member and mayor's responsibility. In terms of citizens' input, our emails are out there, my phone number's out there. I have always been open and available to hearing people's concerns, complaints, questions. And again, I think that's another individual council member or mayor has to be open to dialogue from the citizens. I mean, ultimately, y'all are the ones that put us here. So it's our responsibility to hear from you all the time.
I just want to add one thing. When you were elected, you're in a job description. I would like to see our future council step outside of that job description. I think in person is more valuable.
Okay, thank you. Okay, then, Chris, you're first on this one. This is, please summarize your top 2 to 3 policy priorities and how they will advance the full community integration of people with disabilities. So this would be 2 to 3 policy priorities for people with disabilities that you'd like to see or like to initiate once you get in office.
Well, as someone who runs an organization that deals in those of needs, if you will, again, knowing what the policies are, say policies changes, so I guess that's a big question because I think that we have an adequate type of requirement inside the city when it comes to policies dealing with those of handicapped nature or any nature that needs support. So I don't know that I would have a priority in a change of that question doesn't really make sense for me as far as the...
Well, or advancing.
I mean, I think the answer there has to really be as long as that every public access point is catered and designed for those who are in need, whether it be ramps or steps or access points. I think that, and I would think the city has most of that. If it's not, then you need to go do that. I'm not aware of any policies, any difference today, so that's not a very good question for me, I guess.
Blake?
So I believe, isn't there a national standard for handicap requirements in terms of building and sidewalks? Do you know that?
Yeah, there is.
There is, okay.
You know, got the ADA, but I think this maybe even reaches outside of the ADA.
Right.
Maybe something you've seen in Rowlett.
Right.
That you would like to address.
So
Or
I
disabled.
think that first off, you need to have good transportation measures for pedestrians. And when you're building those trails or sidewalks or crosswalks, the new technology that we've been using, at least for traffic signals, actually makes a beeping noise. And then also the elevation from the sidewalk to the crossing walk has to be a certain standard for wheelchair accessibility. And then also city facilities as well. Some of our really older city facilities are not handicap accessible. And so it was going to take significant investment to do that. One of those, I think, is like the community center is a priority. That's a pretty steep hill going up there. I'm not sure how to address that issue, but I've heard from some handicapped individuals that it's quite difficult to get up that hill. So maybe that's one of those things we look into, how to address that particular issue, since it is kind of the entryway to the gate to Rowlett, the community center, is the resident's home. So we need to take care of that first and foremost.
Joe?
I'm going to agree with both of them. I think those are very good points they both made. I do not know what's being implemented at the time. It's one of the questions that I would have to sit down and look to see what the policies are, where there's room to grow. But I think everything that I talk about, I'm going to say it's going to come down to citizen friendly. If it benefits the citizens, it needs to be implemented immediately.
Okay. I've got a question here on housing, and Blake, you'll be first on this one. Given the continuing unprecedented increase in housing costs, which I'm sure everybody's experiencing one way or the other, do you support the city's comprehensive plan goal number 5, which is to provide housing that supports the various lifestyles and population demographics within the community? Why or why not?
Yes, to a certain point, depending on the building types. Am I for some additional affordable single-family homes? Absolutely. Am I for maybe some additional single-family homes, affordable, that are tax credited for seniors? Absolutely. Am I for more multifamily? No, not right now. I think we've kind of reached a point where we need to chill and adapt to the growth that we've seen. It's killing us operationally. And last year, I put forth a new requirement, special use permit, for all additional multifamilies, so a developer can't just build an apartment by right, which was some of the issues we were facing. So that's has stopped that. But again, in terms of some additional tax credited properties that are single family for families, seniors, I think I would be for that, depending on the location and it's really case-by-case basis when you're looking at building types as well.
I agree with Blake. I think it is case by case, and I think that I don't know if it's possible to have these different facilities, whether it be 55 plus or assisted living or you know, I would think that some of these things need to be placed together. I'd like to see some of these assisted 55 plus together. I'm not sure how it would affect the city spread out with low income, 55 plus and spread out through Rowlett. If we're going to do something like that, I'd like to see the 55 pluses together, because I think as a community they could come together and befriend the neighbors, to make a larger friendship or community. Same thing with the low income. I really want to dive into what Rowlett has as a whole, demographically, see where it's placed, and then go from there. But this topic, a lot of the stuff that we're seeing or we're being asked, I really want to get my hands on to be able to be able to talk about it more and answer with a better answer, I think.
Okay. Chris?
Well, for someone who deals with low-income individuals, I, of course, support, to a degree, a number of low-income housing, affordable housing, workforce housing. Like Blake a little bit, I think I'm a little bit apprehensive about so many of them coming in. Depends on where they're going to go at. But I have definitely been in favor of the quantities that we have in this city compared to, we only have about, even though the average income is $101,000, sometimes you raise that question as to how accurate that really is, since how I help so many thousands of families here in Rowlett that need that help. But I, for one, personally agree with making housing affordable for everyone, regardless if they're in the senior aspect or in just low-income housing. So I'm for it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Joel, we're going to have you go next. We're going to look at just some local projects and city issues. And I want to do some that kind of look a little bit at business, since this is a chamber event. What outside-the-box tools do you propose to strengthen communication between city departments, the residences, and the businesses they serve?
I think the residents have a lot more input than they're being allowed to have. I would like to see more of the business aspect be simplified from Rowlett. I've talked to a lot of people who would want to come to Rowlett, but the permit processes are too expensive. I think that needs to be looked at and reevaluated. I think working relationships, shaking hands with people, being involved, making sure that we are at every meeting, making sure these people understand who we are as individuals, not only just mayor or council members. Those relationships go a long way, and I don't think people realize how much that can affect a working relationship when people know that you're there, you're shaking their hand, you're talking to them, you're listening to them, you're not looking down at your phone, you're paying attention. I think that's a big thing. So I would like the communication 101, break it back down and find out what we can do to better listen to the businesses, our citizens first and foremost, and then go from there.
Okay, thank you. Chris?
If you would ask that question
Yeah,
again.
sure will. What outside-the-box tools do you propose to strengthen communication between city departments? It's got residents as well, but I'm really looking at businesses that the city departments serve. I mean, obviously, residents are of the utmost importance, but right now, we're going to kind of go with the businesses.
Well, I firmly believe that the one-on-one personal touch is by far the most aggressive and most acceptable way you should expand your service. I know we have social media aspects that they use. They have their marketing materials that they've used. But for me personally, nothing speaks louder than to be able to sit down with somebody and say, look, this is where we're at. This is what we want. You know, what do you want? That hands-on to me. And I know from the chamber standpoint, I'm a big chamber guy, so I know what Michael and his group has done has been just wonderful. But you still need more hands-on. You need more events that allow people to touch base with each other. I firmly believe that the old-fashioned way of doing business is by far the best way to get out there and spread the word.
Okay, Blake?
Yes, so the chamber has done an excellent job in helping bridge the gap between the business community and the city. And oftentimes, different directors may reach out to Michael and say, hey, do you know anybody from this business that we can get a contact with? And having that communication is important. Additionally, our economic development department has a business retainment position, and it's important that, and I think there's only one, and I think we need more than that to be able to get as many businesses at a time in a year, and make those connections and let the business owners understand that there's a resource for you if you have a problem. There's a contact that you can reach out to if you run into an issue. Additionally, I go back to it's important that the mayor and council members go out and communicate with business owners and have that connection so that they're also a resource. And I've done that a lot with small business owners in this city, making those connections. Additionally, the city has a newer group that I helped co-found, the Rowlett Community Organizations Active in Disaster. And that's a partnership between businesses in Rowlett and the city, so that in a disaster, and nonprofits as well. So in a disaster, we're ready as a group to respond to the needs of the community in a moment's notice. So that's what I would say on that question. Thank you.
You bet. This one I'm going to kind of as a tag onto this question, and Chris, you'll be first on this one. When we talk about working with businesses, how do you feel about tax reinvestment zones or other tax credits for businesses that you guys are trying to pull into the city that'll be beneficial for job growth and property value increases? I'm sorry, Blake, you'll be first on this one.
So
No, I'm sorry, Chris is first on this one because Joel was first last time. My bad, y'all.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I think so.
So again, go back to the question. This is about, tell me.
Well, we talk about being friendly with businesses.
Right.
How do you feel towards, obviously, you always want to try to maintain taxes and rates for our citizens. How do you feel about extending to businesses that you want to bring into Rowlett to enhance jobs, and
Sure.
which enhances property values, et cetera? How do you feel about extending either tax reinvestment zones or some kind of tax break to that individual business for, whatever designated years that might be? Does that make sense? This is just kind of off the top of my head.
Absolutely. No, I'm fully in favor of incentives for businesses to come to town or stay. Obviously, the depth of what that would be predicated on their potential revenue that could come into the city. But for me, there needs to be more. One of the things we lack inside this city is enough commerce. And the only way you get them here is you incentivize them to get here. You got to create an environment that makes them want to come, which is and hopefully going to be done with the examples of Sapphire Bay and North Shore. But to get them here as well, you've got to give them some incentives. People always ask about why is it that Saxe's growing like they have, or why Rockwall's growing like they have. It's because their incentive packages are reasonably extensive. We need to have more of that. So I'm in favor of all the tax increment rates that you want to give them as far as more, or I would even be in favor of, if it's a large enough project, for cash incentives. made that known in my piece. So I believe in trying to incentivize commerce to get here.
Thank you, Chris. Blake?
So with regards to why other cities have bigger piggy banks for incentives, that's because Rowlett is a DART member city, and typically cities use their other percent of sales tax to go into that piggy bank for incentives. So we're not fortunate to have that opportunity. So again, I refer back to my previous statement about going back to DART and saying we want our money back, some of it back. So when looking at incentives, it's very much a case-by-case basis. We have to look at how many jobs is it going to provide to the city, what is the job quality, what is the average salary, what is the proposed impact on sales tax from those jobs? How many residents do we think we're going to get from it? So there's a lot of factors that have to be considered before we say absolutely or absolutely not. And if that means that we have to utilize a TERS, a tax increment reinvestment zone, or public improvement district in order to pay for some of those project needs to help them get their development up out of the ground, and if we've determined that it meets all of our wishes as, job producing, quality jobs, paying well, then yeah, I think that would be an appropriate measure.
Joe? Joe?
I'm definitely for the tax incentives from a business standpoint. I feel that Rowlett's kind of taking what's being offered at the moment. I think with a better package or incentives put together, I would like to see businesses competing for space in Rowlett. Depending on the business that it is, obviously the citizens can have a vote on what they want to see put forth. I think that maybe a 50% tax deduction for the first 4 or 5 years. We want to attract businesses that are, if I took the top 50 businesses in the United States, those are the people I want to reach out to and say, hey, look at this beautiful town we have. Okay, so this is what we plan on doing. And then when you do it, I know Economic Development Committee, if you do it enough, then you'll have people competing for these positions. And from a business standpoint, that's a better place to be than accepting the first thing that comes, like this industrial thing over there at Liberty Grove. Is that the first thing that we've seen? What are they offering to Rowlett? What is Rowlett offering to them? Those are the particulars I don't know. But I would like to see more of an option moving forward. And yes, incentives, absolutely.
Okay, great. Okay, Blake, you're going to be first on this one. In your opinion, what responsibility does City Council have to the following residents of Rowlett? And y'all realize when I say City Council, the mayor serves on the City Council as well, for y'all out there. So what responsibility does the City Council and mayor have to the following residents of Rowlett, have to the following, okay? Residents of Rowlett, non-residents who work in Rowlett, non-residents who commute through Rowlett but do not work here. So we're looking at residents, non-residents who work here, non-residents who commute.
And what is the responsibility of?
What responsibility does the City Council have to the following?
A lot. We're in the business of everything. You go get in the shower, that's the city that's bringing that water to your shower. You go flush the toilet, hey, that's the same water. You go drive down your road, it's a city road. The city is in everybody's everyday lives, and we don't even realize it sometimes. And it's easy to take for granted. So I'd say that there's so many things that the council and mayor is responsible for, and ensuring that people have the quality of life that they want to live in. And so that's what I would say on that question.
Thank you, Blake. Joel?
I would say being an elected official on council is an honor. When people step up and they vote, they're telling you they trust in you. So I would say our citizens are first and foremost in my mind. Commuters, obviously they come through Rowlett. We want to make sure Rowlett is a beautiful city. We want to make sure it's upkept. Our roads are in a great condition, not being run down or overpopulated and run down more. People who work here in Rowlett deserve the same respect as our citizens because they serve our citizens. So to me, citizens first, people who serve our citizens, and then commuters, but everybody deserves the same respect across the board. Again, our citizens, by far, the most important.
Great, thank you. Chris?
Well, I think, again, that pretty well they all kind of equate equally because it requires everything from how we upkeep our roads to how we provide our services. whether they are passing through, they work here, or they live here. We, as a council, would be required to make sure that everything is upkept. So an interesting question to have when you think about people who ride on our roads or live in our houses or work in our businesses, that they all have the need for our services and better roads and landscaping, that kind of stuff, which comes from council making decisions on how we upkeep everything. So I, for one, think they're all equal. So.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, this question will start with Joel, but it's the water that you brought up in yours, Blake, with your response. So what are your thoughts on negotiating a new contract with the North Texas Municipal Water District? Joel, you're first on this one.
I wish we had options. I wish we could take it to the table with different degrees of bargaining, but we don't have that option. I do know through city orientation that we pay a certain amount. I think it's 5 cents per 1,000 gallons, and it was a high rate. But if we didn't use that high rate, I would like to see what we've used over the past 4 years or this last contract, and maybe have that as one of our talking points. Because if we didn't use, we used, instead of 100% of what they're thinking we're going to use, and we used 92%, and we got some kind of a discount, I think that would be probably our only bet. But again, it does come back to the work relationship, making sure that they understand who you are. You're here to support the citizens, and just push those two as much and as we can't be tough with them. We kind of need what they have, so we're at a disadvantage. But I think those are would be my two talking points.
Okay, Chris?
Well, obviously, it doesn't help us that we're a customer city as opposed to an actual voting city with those folks. Obviously, what the previous mayor has done with doing the 8-year downscale piece, which will allow us to reduce out based on the average usage. They'll separate that out between the other customer cities. And then, of course, after that, the 5-year balancing piece will be very important. It'll help us from what we have been in the past. So the fact that we have at least 8 years to begin to readjust on what we have on a match with other customer cities, the example would be because we have so much water that we don't use. For the next 8 years, they'll continue to minimize that down and spread it amongst other customer cities, at least what I understand it to be. And then once they hit that 8-year mark, then we go into a 5-year revolving piece, which will allow us to go not what our highest peak mark was, but over the 5-year average, which will hopefully keep our prices down. So my thing, as I've made a comment in my interview, was that I would think our ultimate goal there needs to be where we find a way to become one of the actual member cities. That'd be like the most perfect thing to do. And again, that's the lack of my knowledge in that today, how that works, but that'd be the ultimate goal you'd want to have. So you have that same say-so at the table.
Blake?
I wish I didn't have 2 minutes because I could talk about this all day.
2 minutes is all you get.
I know, it's so complicated. So Rowlett
It
is the largest customer city of the North Texas Municipal Water District. Currently, we pay for about 3.2 billion gallons of water a year, and that was the use of water that we were using, I think, in 2011. Currently, we use just over 2 billion gallons of water a year. So we're having to make up that gap, and the take-or-pay methodology is just a completely flawed methodology, and it's costing Rowlett more. And so the council, the mayor, implemented this customer city coalition with all of the other customer cities of the water district, and began discussing with attorneys about how to approach this subject with other member cities who were suing the water district for that take-or-pay methodology. And I believe we were successful by reaching out to our representatives and going to the Public Utility Commission meetings and speaking on behalf of Rowlett residents, saying that this is an unfair contract. The challenge that the next council will have to face is that the water district is proposing, to my knowledge, this is the latest information, it may not be the latest, but it's what I know. It's proposing about from 5 cents per 1,000 gallons to 30 cents per 1,000 gallons of a premium upcharge to customer cities. For Rowlett, right now we're paying about $150,000 of a premium, that would bring it up to over $1 million. So we've got another fight that we're going to have to face, and it's not one of those things that we lay down and just say, oh, well, you're the monopoly. No, we're fighting this one because it's going to affect all of our wallets.
Thank you. Okay, Chris, you're first on this one. Rowlett's animal shelter has not been expanded or significantly enhanced in several years. Does it deserve attention now, or within 5 years, or more than 5 years in the future?
Well, I would assume it needs help right now. I don't know if there's a space capable for that today. I know that it's looked at as far as a facility in the future. But for me as well, I think that the facility needs to be addressed today, if it can be. But again, from what I understand, it's inclusive of what would be in the future build for a complex for the city. So I don't know if there's room for that today. If nothing else, they could just remodel it, I guess. I don't know, so.
Okay, Blake?
So a couple years ago, the city allocated $200,000 to put lipstick on a pig, and for the animal shelter, and it's really just to fix some of the health safety issues that shelter was experiencing. It's kind of sad when you go there and look at. First off, we have a lack of kennel space, but also just you have molded sheetrock. It was just really gross, and so we've put some money to fix that, and that construction is underway now. But we absolutely need a new facility, and I'm hoping that the new council for the November election, if we have one, for the facilities bond, will put an animal shelter on the ballot so that the voters can decide whether they want to pay for a new animal shelter. I don't know if you've seen the city of Garland's new one, but that is a model. I mean, oh, that is amazing. I don't know that we'll get that kind of Taj Mahal, but that's the dream.
Okay, Joel?
As a pet owner, I have 3 Dachshunds and a 98-pound pointer. My mother-in-law is a veterinarian. She owns Club Hill Animal Clinic in Garland. And I've seen firsthand how important it is to have the staff and the facility to support your animals, whether it be animals you find on the road or just the city's pets themselves. We have to definitely make sure, and I know that going through orientation, the 2 of the main topics are our police station and our animal shelter. So I know that those 2 are on the radar already. But yes, I'm for a larger and maybe a different location, maybe not like Garland, the Taj Mahal as you referred it to, but something similar. I think I've heard a lot of really good things about the Garland animal shelter. So yes, I would be for it.
Thank you. Okay, Blake, we'll do one more question on these local projects and city issues. Blake, what city services and departments do you view as absolutely essential, and why?
So obviously public safety and public works. Public safety because, well, you need a police officer or firefighter when you call 911. And we've run into some issues with staffing, not having enough staffing in the police side. And so it will be a job of this new council to allocate the necessary funding and apply for different grants to receive funding to hire more officers. And then public works, well, because like I said earlier, you turn your water on, you expect water to come out. And they work day in and day out, our public works staff, to keeping our system running and making sure that we have quality drinking water and utilities and all kinds of things. They're responsible for so many things, and I consider them first responders as well. Because it's an emergency if a water main break occurs.
Hey, Joel?
This is a good topic. I am putting our Rowlett Police Department in the forefront of my mind and my efforts. I know we have some existing issues going on between a presiding judge and our police department. I know there's some things that are going on within the city that have shaken the city up to a point of just unbelievable. I mean, you look different directions and it's coming from all directions. We're finding out new issues and grievances and people who haven't been heard of or talked to. That is my first. I like to take things one at a time. We have a whole bunch of issues to worry about here in Rowlett coming in as council. But right now, my main battle is making sure that this situation has a conclusion, because I think it's going to be very difficult for anybody who walks into the doors of the city council chambers to be able to move on to something better and have our minds focused on the growth instead of something that's been happening since 2016. So I think there's a lot of different things, but I'm going to focus one thing at a time, starting on day one, as in that's the first thing I need to address. So.
Okay. Chris?
Well, I've had a kind of like question like this asked probably 3 times to me so far, and depends on who you talk to. They are all imperative. Every department is imperative, as somebody have called me from, again, different departments within the city. Obviously, first responders, basic necessities become top priorities. But I think as council, it's our responsibility to make sure that we don't find ourselves in a need of having to cut services. What is a priority? Well, basic human life necessities are number one, obviously. But to me, I think that as a council, you're required to do whatever it takes to make sure you're not cutting. Because again, I've had no less than 3 calls so far from what would be other considered type of low priority type programs or departments, say like the library is one. I find it equally as valuable. So I don't want to go in and say that, which is the most priority, other than, yes, it has to be life skills first. Your ability to be able to respond to emergencies and, again, eat, and sleep and drink and that kind of stuff. But,
Great.
Yeah.
Got it. Well, I was going to skip to some general questions, but since you brought this up, Joel, and you're the next one that's going to be first, what specifically are you going to do to repair the relationship between the Rowlett Police Department and the courts?
The first thing I would do is listen to every personnel who's filed a grievance who has never been heard. I know Chief Broadnex is gone. We've had Michael Godfrey, which is, I understand, is a great gentleman. He's also resigning for the same reason. There's some more stuff to come out later on that. But I think that because some of these issues haven't been addressed for as long as they have, and I think even Blake has been stepping up to try to see what's going on. And I think there's a lot more there that needs to be exposed and brought up and brought to light. I felt like I was watching my Facebook when I was watching that city council meeting on the 15th. It's going to be hard to trust our council if we know that they're hiding things, or these individuals. I mean, on one post, there were 2 people who commented with 42 years of experience that were Rowlett employees who left because of this presiding judge. So to me, that's ridiculous. I think if there's one instance where it hasn't been addressed or they haven't been interviewed, that's an issue. We have to be able to move on. So, I mean, from the first day, I will look at the law. I'll talk to our city manager, whoever is involved or has been involved. I think it needs to come up, and I think it needs to be addressed, and whether they need to resign or we need to replace, I think that's going to have to be mandatory before we can move on to actually focusing on what Rowlett really needs to be focused on. So it's, like I said, it's paramount right now that gets resolved. I would like to say before the next May 7th elections, but that's not going to happen. We know it takes time. There's going to be, like I said, more information coming out, and I think people need to pay attention. If you don't know about it, please look it up. We need to make sure that our first responders, our police officers, have the backing from the citizens, especially our council.
Okay, thank you, Joel. Okay, Chris, what specifically are you going to do to repair the relationship? Thank you. To repair the relationship between the Rowlett Police Department and the courts?
There's several factors to know in regards to this topic. I mean, obviously, Chief Godfrey is already leaving, and there's no change in that. So we will need to address his level. Our remindance is that the police chief is hired by the city manager, and as such, they help dictate the rules in there. It's unfortunate that Chief Godfrey's leaving, but the reality is he's leaving. When it comes to the judge part, the thing that we need to remind ourselves of is that as a city council, the city council doesn't really hire the judge. The city council appoints the judge. So if there's a complaint in here, I think the reminder to us is that we should be following those complaints properly, which would be in the hierarchy, if indeed the judge has done something wrong. I'm not applying anything either way. I do believe that everyone should play in that sandbox together. But the reality of it is that if there is a complaint to be filed when it comes to the judge side, then we should be following it if she's done something wrong, which again, I don't have an opinion either way here because I don't know all those specifics. But I believe that the way you solve that is to find out what the problem has been, and I can tell you that playing in the sandbox has been the big problem. When you lose one judge who is much more loose on their interpretations of day-to-day protocol and bring in one that's much more in tune with what the law is, it's going to cause a conflict. It is most unfortunate that we're going to lose another police chief. I, for one, am friends with both of them, so it's very hard for me to come in and try to think, how do you clean that mess up? But the reality of it is you just have to realize that with every environment of a business, that there is standard operating procedures that to be followed. And as such, both people should be able to read it, understand it, and play in the sandbox. Right now, we need to hire a new police chief.
Thank you. Blake?
So this is undoubtedly a complicated issue, and it's been an issue that has existed for several years, and it just continues to get worse. You know, I'm limited to what I can say on this, but what I can say is that what has lacked in these several years is action. And action needs to be taken to resolve this matter, not just pushing these issues aside. So I'm trying to stay limited to what I can say, but that's kind of the gist of it and what I can say. Now, I'd also say for those in the audience and who are watching live, you can go view the last council meeting and kind of see a little more into what's going on than what I'm saying here.
Okay, thank you, Blake. Okay, Chris, you're going to be the first one on our next question. We're getting more general information and qualifications. Okay, so considering that the mayor serves as basically the CEO of the city, with the budget of over $100 million with Rowlett, please tell us your business or work background, number of years in the workforce, including positions held, and how that experience has prepared you to represent our city on a local, state, and national level, both politically and corporately. That's a very extensive question, so take a shot at it, and we'll see if we need to expand it any.
All right, well, obviously, you are correct. The mayor is the CEO. I have been very proactive in the business world as a business owner for 20 years, owning my own company from before, built it from scratch. I retired from it in 2018 to building another multi-million-dollar company with a charity from scratch. So the ability to build something, number one, falls under a criteria of what an entrepreneur would be, which is AKA a CEO. You're there to build something. To be able to sustain it and maintain it is probably the most pivotal. My history as being a successful businessman has spanned, for me, I'm about to be 60 years old next year, so probably 35 years of my life has been with self-employed building. Again, 25 years being almost with Life Message and 20 years of my own company. The fact that I have sat on several boards and commissions in the city gives me some insight there. But as a business owner, I think that it's the responsibility of the mayor to get out and do all the handshaking along with economic development. They are required, in my mind, to be a voice for this city. They need to go out based on my experiences and take that knowledge base with you, which is how to go build a city around commerce. And this is exactly what we need. So my experiences are very deep in that area. So,
Blake?
So the mayor is not really your CEO, it's like the chairman of a board of directors. The CEO is like the city manager. But
I'm just reading it as presented.
yeah, I know. So the city is not like running a business because you're not in for a profit, you're in for services and to provide those services in an efficient manner. So having 5 years of council experience and board experience, I think puts me in the right place to be running for mayor, and to understand that it's not running a business, it's how to allocate the funding in the appropriate ways, and I've done that for the last 5 years in all these different budgets, over $100 million budgets.
Phil?
So I worked for individuals in the same IT and infrastructure world since I was 19, and I created my own company in 2008 at the age of 34. I've always felt that I could do things more honestly, not taking advantage of clients, making sure that they only get what they need, maybe even saving some funds, not giving them exactly what they're asking for, but something to suffice them to be able to allocate funds somewhere else. I absolutely think that it is a profit-driving business, but it's what benefits the citizens. So doing business since 2008, I couldn't imagine how many people we've sat down and talked with, and my project manager is here tonight, and he has been with me side by side for the past 12, 13 years. Great gentleman. We've been able to win multi-thousand, $750,000 jobs. We talk to corporate individuals, and we have to sell ourselves, our product, to these CEOs and CFOs of huge companies, and trust. And we have to earn our trust so that they can give us sometimes up to 50% of these projects up front. So speaking with somebody, you have to be able to get on the same page, understand their needs, and utilize those thoughts and the years of experience to sit down with somebody like the water distribution and have those incorporated corporation thought processes when speaking to somebody. So over the years, like I said, I worked for people for 16 years, been self-employed for 13, 14, and I think there's a lot of knowledge that goes with that.
Okay. Okay, Blake, let's see. What specific skill or knowledge do you have that differentiates you from your opponents?
So I would say the experience, again, being on city council for the last 5 years, being a part of every budget that we've passed in each of those years, and being more in tune with the needs of the community, engaging with the community on a daily basis, and again, understanding the needs of the community. There was a thought process there that I was going down, but, and can you ask that question
You're
one
too
more
young
time?
for that.
I know. Can you ask that one more time? I'm
Yes,
sorry.
what specific skill or knowledge do you have that differentiates you from your opponents?
Oh, yes, and connections. So being on council for 5 years has allowed me to make a lot of regional connections in the Metroplex and other cities, surrounding cities, partner cities, and that will help when we go to negotiate new contracts like with the Water District, being able to utilize those connections to understand maybe some aspects that Rowlett isn't aware of. And I've used that to my advantage before, those connections to get information to the city so that we're in a better position at the table.
Okay, Joe?
I would say my corporate experience, again, wanting to make things better, seeing people take advantage of people, has pushed me into starting my own company. And seeing some of the things going on in my city has initiated me to do the same thing. And it is considered a leap of faith when you're starting your business. And this is a huge leap of faith, jumping into something that you don't have a bunch of knowledge with. Blake has been there for 5 years, and that's a great position to be. Also, not being involved as much as some people would like is also beneficial. Being a, what did you refer to it? It's not the CEO, it's more of like a project management as far as the chairman. That position I already hold. I hold that, and we've seen people come and go. I've had the same guy work with me for the past 13 years. We've never had an issue, a dispute. We work well together. We both know each one of our roles, and that's respected. And I think, again, walking into this business-orientated group, municipal group, it still is ran like a business, and you still have to respect everybody's abilities and their duties. And if there's things that need to be adjusted, then you find and you work with that person and you help that person. And then if it happens again, obviously start thinking about other things. Is this for you? Shall we find somebody else? The corporate world, hiring and firing, it gets uncomfortable. And when you get uncomfortable, you learn new things. So I'm learning a lot recently, I'll tell you that. So that's probably one of my advantages.
Thank you, Joel. Chris?
Well, my strongest advantages are, of course, is that I've ran multi-million-dollar corporations and multi-million-dollar charities. Sustainable budgets is a big deal. Been able to sustain the wherewithal of the actual, in my case, company continue from year to year to year to growth. Being able to negotiate terms, being a contracts guy myself, puts me in a different position than some would be. I mean, you can't take away from certain places where Blake may have some regional type benefits as far as people he knows, but from running a multi-million-dollar or $100+ million budget for a city puts it right up my alley. My abilities to sustain, maintain, build, and more importantly, promote a multi-million-dollar company puts me, in my mind, at a different place than what I won't speak from both because I don't know what Joel's bottom line's been, but from my standpoint, that business for so many years places me at a most unique position compared to my competition.
Okay. We've been doing this about an hour and a half, so I'm going to let y'all roll it up. You're going to have 2 minutes, but I want you to start with, let's see, and Joel, you'll be first. I want you to start your 2-minute roll-up with what makes you proud to be a Rowlett citizen.
Okay, first of all, I'm proud to be an American, so that's the first thing I'm going to say. Thank you. Amen to that. Secondly, moving into Rowlett, I've gained an appreciation for a small community. I love Rowlett. I think there's a lot of amazing aspects we have. Our lake is by far, it's underrated. I think we need to make sure that we push our lake up, and any businesses on the lake, Dave, we need to make sure that they're lifted up. I think we all on this stage want to see something different. And I think we all want to see our citizens put first. And I think we all want to see our first responders, with the situation they have, we want to see them at ease with that. We want to see that calm down to where it's a great work environment. Rowlett, to me, my children are going to grow up. I have a 12-year-old and a 7-year-old again that are going to grow up in this city. And the decisions that are made by the mayor and council are going to affect my children. So I want to make sure that if I'm going to lay a foundation, first and foremost, my children are going to benefit from that. And I think we all, if you have kids and you're not an empty nester, you probably think the same way I do. We want to make sure that our lakefront homeowners are taken care of because they're the ones responsible for keeping their properties clean. We want to make sure that everybody that we have in this city understands that they are first and they are the ones who can help this city change direction if we're not happy with the direction that it is right now.
Thank you. Okay, Chris, start with what makes you proud to be a Rowlett citizen and give us your 2-minute roundup.
Well, being here 31 years, I'll tell you, I have watched this city grow like crazy. So I am very proud to be a part of what this community has come from to where this community is going to tomorrow. Active in Life Message, where it's at, it has shown the heart of this city. The way they've engaged with us on so many levels only just proves that our citizens are of the heart to the point where they want to give back, and that's important for me. The fact that where our future is going to go, I see what that is. I see us as a bigger destination city. I like the idea that what we represent is a piece of tomorrow as well as yesterday. I think we still maintain what we've had all along, and we can build around all that, but we need to maintain that parts of that bedroom community within reason. But I have watched this city grow tremendously, both in size and in structure for the last, again, 31 years. So I am very proud to be a Rowlett resident. I like what we're doing, and I like the citizens. So I just love this city.
Thank you, Chris. Blake?
So what makes me proud of Rowlett is the sense of community that we've always held on to. Even as we grow rapidly, we have still kept this sense of community, and that is one of the most valuable things that we have. The other thing is, again, capitalizing on our assets, the lake. That not many cities have a lake that surrounds them. So capitalizing on that is another opportunity. This community is filled with so many opportunities, and there are so many places we can go to be better. And so, again, the sense of community is probably my most favorite part of Rowlett, and why I'm proud to serve and look forward to serving as your next mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Y'all, thank you all for coming out tonight. It's really important that you be informed as voters. So I've loved seeing this room full of people. And actually, as Joel said, probably the closest, most impactful governmental entity that you have is your city council. So get out and vote. Encourage your friends to. I think there will be a couple more candidate forums. Encourage them to come on. You guys are going to stick around for a few minutes so they can ask you questions. Our candidates will be milling around, so if you have something you want expansion on from somebody, just go up and ask them. Anything else, Michael, we need to let them know? Yes. Yes. Let's start with Blake. Your contact info, website, that kind of stuff.
So my email address is blakemargolis@msn.com. Phone number is 972-977-3869. And my website is www.blakeforrowlett.com. Thank you.
Joel?
You can go to voteforjoelmedina@gmail. I have a website. It's votejoelmedina.com. I do not have a campaign page. If you want to know anything about me since 2009, check out my Facebook page, and you can find my values and what I'm aiming for in the future.
Okay, Joel, can you spell your last name? Because I'm not familiar with it.
I always tell people to remember this. If you remember a song called Funky Cole Medina, it's Medina.
Okay, easy enough. Chris?
Maybe you just sing that song right quick.
It's a laugh every time I say it, I swear.
You can reach out to me, of course. My Facebook page is Chris Kazar for Mayor is Facebook. My website, of course, is rowlettmayor.com. You can reach me on chris@rowlettmayor.com by email or chris@lifemessage.org. And by all means, my cell number is always out there, and I would encourage everyone to call me. I would love to hear from you. It's 469-569-7256. And I prefer one-on-one or phone call preferred.
Thank you, gentlemen. Y'all, it is a lot of effort, and it takes guts to get out here and do this. So let's give a round of applause for these gentlemen.